Hi, everyone. Hello, hello. Hi. It's Thursday. Yay. And I'm coming to you from Florida, where I've been visiting friends for a couple days. Hi, everybody. I'll give you all a chance to join because I'm very excited. I'm going to be talking to Dr. Jen Arnold. You all probably know Jen. She is the greatest. She's so smart. She's so funny. She's so sweet. I love her. And hi, Lil Biscuit. I love her and her husband, Bill. And I'm very excited because Jen is going to start contributing some content for Katie Couric Media. Hi, everybody. Hi. And so I thought it would be fun for her to talk a little bit, just tell you all a little bit about herself, to check in with her. She recently moved to Boston, where she's probably freezing that ass off of hers, or her ass off, not that ass off, you know what I mean. And she's going to be covering a lot of medical issues and really. Well, hello. I'm glad your last name is Arnold too. Anyway, she's going to be covering a lot of medical issues for us. As you know, we have a lot of really helpful information from Becky Brightman, who's my gynecologist, about menopause and all kinds of things. Hold on, let me see. I think Jen is there. Hi, Jen.
Hello, how are you, Katie? Good to see you.
Great to see you. And I'm going to get rid of the comments only because they're covering your face and I want to see you while I talk to you. But I want to also encourage everyone, if they have any questions for you, Jen, to please feel free to ask them in the question section of our Instagram Live. I love that I can just dial you up and we can be talking like this. I think it's technology can be a wonderful thing. But, we reconnected on DM on Instagram recently. You and I got together with your husband, Bill, who I was saying is such a great guy. And we talked about you contributing to our newsletter and our website and doing some interviews for us on a lot of medical issues because you're such a brainiac when it comes to medicine. So, it was really fun to spend some time with you, but I want everyone to know a little bit about your background, Jen. And everyone, if you're just joining, I'm talking to Dr. Jen Arnold, who is a neonatologist, but she's a lot more than just that. And what I was saying, Jen, before you came on was, and maybe you heard me, is that one of the things I think is so valuable is you approach medicine from almost every point of view, from the point of view of a patient, from the point of view as a mom, as a daughter, and as someone who spent so much time in hospitals and going through medical situations. So I think you're the perfect person to really share important information for people. As I mentioned, you're a neonatologist. You're also a pediatrician. Don't worry, I'm going to let you talk. You're also a medical school professor. You're a world-renowned expert in medical simulation, whatever that is. You'll have to tell me, at Boston Children's Hospital and at Harvard School of Medicine. She's a real brainiac, everybody. You're a best-selling author. You're also a cancer survivor. So you've had quite a life, Jen Arnold. But first, tell us a little bit about I think, your early childhood, really from the time you were born, and why that uniquely set you up to pursue a career in medicine.
Yeah, no, I mean, thank you for that. I think, growing up from birth, I have a type of skeletal dysplasia called spondyloepiphyseal dysplasia type Strudwick, which is essentially a type of dwarfism, very rare. But what really led me to spending so much time in the hospital growing up were all of the orthopedic complications. So I've had about 30 surgeries plus, I don't know, maybe we've lost track, close to 40 in my lifetime. And the majority of them actually were as a child, from, being an infant all the way through college. And so I became very comfortable in the hospital, and you really just had so much experience with doctors and nurses and navigating healthcare. Put my mother through the ringer, pretty much every year. But it's that experience that really led me and drew me to medicine. I wanted to give back.
And I love the fact, by the way, that your parents were so supportive of you your entire life. They never made you feel less than. They never made you feel like, that you were limited in terms of what you could pursue academically or professionally. And but other people didn't necessarily see it that way. And tell us about when you tried to get into medical school and how difficult that was.
Oh yeah, that was probably the first time I think growing up I sort of thought that no matter how hard I tried, worked hard, right? I was always one of those folks that just worked really hard to get to the goals that I wanted, that it might not be possible. I applied, which is pretty common, to about 30 plus medical schools. It's a standardized process. So you send in your initial application and then you get secondaries. And I got a lot of secondary applications. And then in that secondary application, I put in, my personal statement, which was, my experience as a patient, being a person with a disability, and wanting to go into medicine. And that's when I realized things were, I was looked upon differently. I did not get any interviews to all of the schools, which I got 90% secondary applications back, and then zero interviews except for two. And one of them, it's a long story, but essentially I was fairly well known in college. I went to the University of Miami, and the president of the university got to know me because I was an ambassador, a student ambassador. And when I was applying, he asked me how it was going and if I had interviewed there. I had already been rejected from Miami without an interview. And about 2 days later, I got a call from the Office of Admissions offering me an interview. And I thought, oh my goodness, he must have made a phone call.
Yeah.
And I didn't know whether to accept it. But I figured I had no other, prospects, so why not? And I went to that interview, but I got one more on my own, and that was at Johns Hopkins School of Medicine, which was my dream school. So in the end, I can tell you the interview process for the first school that I interviewed at. It was very much good cop versus bad cop. And how was I going to do things as a person of short stature in medicine? How was I going to crack open the chest of an MVA victim that comes in through the ER? Essentially what they were looking at. Oh,
How were you, I was just going to say, I know they told me, they said, how are you going to operate on someone if you couldn't reach the operating table?
yeah, that's exactly what they were really worried about. And the thing is, from my perspective, I didn't want to become a surgeon. I mean, I wish sure, that would have been great, but it would have been hard physically. And no one goes into medicine wanting to put others at risk because you can't do something. But I did think, and thankfully, I guess I was right, that there are other things you can do in the field of medicine and take care of patients without, having to be capable of doing it all. And so essentially it was this concept that if you're going to go into medicine, you had to be capable of becoming any type of surgeon or physician. And for me, I thought I could contribute to pediatrics. And I actually chose neonatology, where my patients are never bigger than me. All I need is a step stool.
So what happened? So the University of Miami, you were saying, sorry, and I interrupted you, so did you get rejected from that school? What happened?
No, I actually got an invitation to join after all. Both schools, both the University of Miami and Johns Hopkins. My Johns Hopkins interview was extraordinarily easy. It was sort of, about my grades, my activities, like normal questions, to the point where they never asked me about my stature. And after the previous interview, where I felt I spent the whole hour defending my goal of becoming a doctor, I was worried that, for a moment, maybe he didn't realize I was a little person. I mean, of course he did. I was in person, pre-Zoom. But in the end, it was sort of no big deal for them. So I ended up choosing the place that I felt like they had confidence in my ability to make it through.
Johns Hopkins is an amazing place. I mean, what a incredible medical school you got to go to. And why neonatology?
Well, during my medical school period, I realized how much I love pediatrics. And so I did my pediatric residency, and I could have stopped there as a general pediatrician, but I realized how much I loved the adrenaline of saving a life. And neonatology is intensive care. It's just intensive care for babies. It's specialized care for, newborns, premature newborns, or babies born with medical or surgical problems like heart disease and things. And so I just realized that was an opportunity to save a life and give a baby a chance for a happy life in many of the ways that I had, benefited from the care that I received growing up. So
I know. And Bill on a dating app, Jen. We're getting a lot of questions, and I'm trying to I'm trying to get to those in a minute, and also to my own questions and listen to you. So I'm multitasking right now, Jen. But you met your husband Bill on a dating app. He actually had the same orthopedic surgeon, I think, that you did, right?
Yep, we both actually have a very similar type of skeletal dysplasia, and we both went for care to see Dr. Stephen Kopitz, who just decided early on in his practice to specialize in the care of little people, which was something that didn't exist, and to this day probably doesn't exactly exist, although there are some that do most of their work in this field now. But it's such a, it's a small population of kids that he saw that had really unique needs, and no one knew how to address. And so he dedicated his entire career. And I know the reason I'm able to do what I'm able to do today is because of him. And same with Bill. And so we actually met when we were in the hospital at the age of 10. I was having surgery, so I wasn't feeling too good. And he was there for physical therapy after recovering from surgery. And he was apparently cruising the hall, looking for chicks in his wheelchair, literally. He came in my room, and apparently my mother and I both shooed him away. And he says that he knew from that moment it was love at first sight. And
when you were 10?
When we were 10, yep. And then we never met again, although we were both told about each other from our surgeon and his nurse practitioner, Diane, who remains a close family friend. And then we met online on a dating app randomly. I didn't realize who he was. I glass of wine, mid-30s, tired of being single, thinking I'm going to find someone. So I searched this dating app called Date a Little. I searched a 500-mile radius, and I'm not joking. And I came across this handsome young guy who was like my age, and he had a job, which was key. I mean, I had criteria, and I shot him an email, and turns out that he knew who I was, and I didn't realize who he was. And well, the rest is history. We met after about 2 months of talking on the phone, and me falling asleep on him because I was a tired trainee working 100 hours a week.
And he's great, and he's got a great sense of humor. And I know that you all you put your name on list to adopt children before you were even married, and now you have 2 children. You have Will and Zoe. Will is a little person adopted from China, Zoe from India, and I know that they've had their fair share of medical issues as well. Does it just basically come with the territory, unfortunately?
It does. It does. Depending on the type of little person you are, the type of skeletal dysplasia, it can vary in terms of the types of complications and the severity. And then, of course, each individual is different. And so both of my kids do have some of the common complications of having achondroplasia, which is their skeletal dysplasia. But, for the most part, thankfully, they haven't had nearly as many surgeries. They don't have as many of the limb joint issues, although they do have some, spine issues and orthopedic issues. Thankfully, thus far, they've been pretty good. It's for them right now, their biggest challenge has been sort of related to the head and neck and the sort of the obstructive sleep apnea and surgeries related to that, hearing and things related to some of the skeletal abnormalities in their craniofacial area.
Oh, how old are the kids now?
Will is 12. He turns 13 in literally 3 weeks. I can't even believe it. And Zoe is 11.
And not only have you dealt with some medical, many medical issues, Jen, throughout your life, but I know when you were in the process of adopting Zoe, you discovered you in fact had cancer as well. And a lot of people wanted to know about your recovery journey and how you were able to stay positive, because you went through a lot of treatment. You had 6 rounds of chemo, you had blood transfusions, you had a hysterectomy. And a lot of people, I think, A, want to know how you're doing. People ask me that all the time too now. And B, sort of how you were able to stay so upbeat as you were dealing with this.
Yeah, I appreciate that. And I know, Katie, you are a passionate advocate for cancer awareness. And for me, I mean, I feel like, I don't know, my whole life is just about being an advocate for healthcare in general. And then to have, when I got the diagnosis, I thought, how is that possible? Like, haven't I had enough? And you just sort of wonder, like probably everyone, why me? But I also, because I had just brought home Zoe, and I felt like at that point in my life, I felt like I had the perfect life, right? I had two beautiful kids that I adore. I had an amazing husband, a great career, like everything was going great. And then all of a sudden something kind of comes out of left field and it kind of throws you off your tracks. So I kind of went into survivor mode, and I knew that I needed to get through this. I needed to put everything I could into thinking positive and just, sort of, telling myself, I am not letting this get me. Like, I am going to do everything within my power. Doesn't mean I didn't have, nights at home where I might have been tearful, cried, anxious. I didn't sleep very well much of my treatment times, but, I had Bill by my side, who was such a strong support for me. But, I knew I had to get through it for Zoe and for Will. And I'm very thankful that, I had a great team. And, despite the fact that, we didn't know at first how to treat me because of my stature, it turns out chemotherapy, dosing in little people, not a lot known. And at first,
That's not a surprise, right?
yeah, they didn't, I mean, it's based on height and weight, but that didn't work for me. And I wasn't losing my hair, and the tumor was growing rapidly, and,
Well,
I was hemorrhaging.
people may be wondering what kind of cancer you had, Jen. They don't know.
Yeah, I had stage 3 choriocarcinoma, which is a type of cancer in the uterus, but it's from a abnormal pregnancy, it turns out. So you hear the stories, like everyone goes through fertility and or adoption, and then they kind of get pregnant when they least expect it. Well, that happened to me. I accidentally got pregnant. And from the beginning, it was not a normal pregnancy, not likely to survive. And it was ended up being what's called a complete molar pregnancy, which has very slight risk of turning into cancer, but slight. No one thought it was happening to me. I was doing great. And then out of left field, I started bleeding profusely. And when we came home with Zoe, I immediately went to see my GYN, and that's when I was diagnosed with stage 3. It had already metastasized to my lungs.
Oh my,
So,
but you're doing fine now. And when was this, Jen?
yeah, it happened in 2013. So it's been a while. I'm 9 years out now, cancer free.
Well, we're so happy to hear that. And a lot of people wanted to know how you're surviving the move to Boston, because you guys were in Florida before that, right?
Correct. Yes, I'm actually originally from Florida, and but we hadn't lived in Florida. We lived in Houston before then, and my first sort of big career move was to Houston after finishing my training, and then we moved to Florida to help start another simulation program. That's my other hat, is starting up and sort of running simulation programs, and then now came up here for the same reason. So moving from Houston and Florida to the cold has definitely been a big change for us.
I know it is. It's pretty miserable, but it can be pretty invigorating. But I'm with you. I'm a warm weather girl too. When you talk about a simulation program, that was John.
Hi,
John, say hi to. Hi, he's saying, what exactly, when you talk about the simulation program that is your other half, what exactly are you doing with that?
so it's really a way of training, improving patient safeties and healthcare systems. It involves using immersive technologies to essentially either recreate or model healthcare so that we can improve it. And our focus really is on patient safety, knowing that medical errors, preventable harm are up to the third leading cause of death in our country. It's probably lower now, or less than COVID in the recent years, but pre-COVID, it was the third leading cause of death. So our focus to really help train clinicians to be prepared for high-risk, rare situations, and to also help uncover hazards in our environments of healthcare. So we use everything from VR to mannequins to actors. It's all about making healthcare more optimal.
That's so great. And also, I think bedside manner is so critically important. I think it can make such a big difference. I know when my husband was sick and my sister was sick, to have caring physicians who spend time with patients if they have time means so much. And I'm so glad you're doing that, because the quality of care for patients who are scared or sick is so important. Well, tell me real quickly before we go, Jen, some of the things that you are hoping to share with our readers and our viewers at KCM that you'd like to, that you think are really important and that people don't know enough about.
Yeah, so I am super excited to contribute to KCM because there are so many healthcare topics right now that I think, many individuals just don't have enough information about, or the right information. So my primary goal is to help dispel myths and get rid of misinformation, and to help people, to empower them to take better care of their own health or the health of their loved ones. So I'm really excited to talk about healthcare inequities, the future of genetics and science. I'd love to talk about patient safety and health simulation can help that. And obviously, as a pediatrician and a neonatologist, I think one of the populations that often gets overlooked are pediatrics and kids health, and parents really need advice on how to care for their kid, whether it's mental health right now, which we are in a tremendous crisis. I struggle with it with my own kids, and so I just think about the things that I as a parent would want to know about, and that's what I want to help bring to others, because at the heart of it, I'm always an educator. So I'm really excited about bringing all of these topics to hopefully to people's, the frontal lobe is not the right word, but to the forefront.
Yes,
that's the word.
Yeah, that's what you're thinking. Yes, yes. Well, I'm really excited, and I want to be really responsive to our viewers and, as I said, our readers and people who often turn to us for advice. So I really urge all of you, we'll post this Instagram live, but I would urge all of you to tell us some of the things, some of the issues that you feel you could be better informed about, because I think, we all have to advocate for ourselves when it comes to preventing disease and treating disease and handling our children's health. As you mentioned, there are a lot of people who want to know more about helping children with their emotional needs, because it's a very hard time to be a kid. I think it's a very hard time to be a teenager right now.
Yeah. Yes, and I'm about to have one, and I am petrified.
I've been doing a lot of research on kids and social media, and I think try to keep them off of it as long as you can. That would be my advice.
Yes, yes. And in fact, we started that podcast at the hospital to help with some pediatric topics, and that's one of our next topics, is that social media. How do you manage that with your child? It's so hard.
I was with a friend this weekend, and she said her boys learned how to hide different apps they had on their phones, so so the parents couldn't really figure it out. But they're so technologically savvy, they can really kind of do it very surreptitiously. So it's a challenging one, and but anybody can handle it. I think you can.
Thanks. Well, I'm happy to share what I learn along the way,
Okay.
what I do well and what I fail at.
Okay, great. Well, again, everyone, please welcome Jen to the KCM family, and we look forward, John is clapping, and we look forward to having all your important information and sharing it with everyone in our community. Jen, great to see you. Stay warm.
Thank you. I will. You too. I hope you're someplace warm.
I am. I'm in Florida right now.
My hometown.
Yes. So, and tell Bill I said hi, and the kids as well.
I will. Thank you again.
All right,
well,
Jen. Okay, bye.
Bye-bye.